but we should be okay for today. So you can just let me know if you can see my screen, and then we'll kick off. Aye. Okay. It seems like you can see my screen. So just let me know if you have any issues. Calvin, could I just ask if you just mute your microphone, unless you have any questions? But if there's no questions, I'm just going to mute your mic. Okay, so just let me know in the chat if you have any issues with sound or video. So just an introduction for those who don't know me. I do recognize some of the names in the attendance list, but my name is Adam. I'm one of the senior support consultants here, so most of my time I am off-site at clients with implementations and training and all that stuff. But today we're going to be covering, it's more of a sneak preview really on a couple of new features, where we have Bank Manager, we have online purchase order approvals, and we have something called laybys, which, if I'm not mistaken, was actually custom development for one of the guys who's attending this session. So this is the first time we're training on these modules, so you might have some questions that are quite new, but let's give it a go, shall we? So I'm going to start off with Bank Manager and then laybys. With the online purchase order approvals, I'm unable to log on to that system at the moment because the developers are working on it. So I will try by the end, once we get past laybys, and see if we can get onto it. Otherwise, we might have to just reschedule 20 minutes for another Friday or something like that. So I do apologize for that, but we'll try and log in after I do the laybys. So this is on version 10 release 2. So there's a lot of new features on this version. So I know we had a specific training session. I don't know if it was earlier this week or last week. My colleague Anthony did it, I think. So he covered some of the other new features. But I'm going to be focused on those three. Okay, so I'm getting a message from one of the attendees that they can't hear me. Is anyone else having that issue? If you could just let me know in the chat if you can hear me, because I don't want to carry on if only... Thanks, Jeff, appreciate it. So I'm just going to give Tandeka a message quickly, if you just hold on. Okay, so let's kick on with the Bank Manager module. And firstly, also, so it's not officially released, this release 2 version, but we're getting a few bigger clients who are coming in at the moment, and they are going on this version. But it's not technically released, it's still technically a beta version, but we've got some big clients on there, 35 users, 40 users, and they're not having any issues, but we just haven't been given the green light to say it's an official release yet. But we aren't having any experiences with issues from the clients who are running it. So it should be available, I would say, safely within the next 4 to 8 weeks or something like that. But you are allowed to upgrade to this version. If you're on a support contract, you just have to acknowledge that you're aware that it's a beta version, so that you might experience issues. But so far, it's been quite successful. So when you are on this version, if you want to access Bank Manager, you'll come to the business module over here, and the icon shows up over here. So before you could only see cash book and projects. So we'll just simply go into here, and then it opens up this screen. So this is the Bank Manager module. And so at the top here, this is where we're going to import our bank statements. And down here, we can do our receipting. So the bottom half of this screen will look very familiar. It's exactly the same as the receipting screen or when you do your payments, etc. So let's have a look. So if I go to import, and on this screen it shows us a bank statement that I've imported previously, but I haven't actually imported it into the system. I've just opened it. So you can load multiple bank statements all together, but just save it. So you don't actually import it. It hasn't updated your balances or your bank or any of that. So I'm going to say, but I'm going to start again. So I'm going to do, and this is the one I saved previously, but let's start from scratch. So let's go, and then see there's a save and exit button here as well. So let's go new, and I'm going to choose a bank. So these are all the banks that it's available on, and the formatting that was required is, so it's whatever format the bank gives you really, but if I just look at the templates I have here, so we have an XLS, TXT, OFX, and also a CSV are fine. So whatever you can get from the bank should be okay, but just let us know if there's any problems there, but it should be all right. So I'm just going to go with this GT bank because it's the one I've been playing around with myself. So I'm going to click on this file, and then it goes through this process where it's loading the statements line by line, and it brings up this page. So the ones you see highlighted in red is your payments to suppliers, and the ones in greens are for your customers. So you can see here, which is quite nice with the coloring, what you can see here, so some of these lines you can see it's automatically allocated the payment to a certain vendor, and some of them have been left blank. So that's because I set up something that's called mapping. So I set it up previously so it identified the word cash as the common denominator and then applied it to the relevant vendor. So if we want to go do the same for, let's say, if I'm going to do one for commission. So I'm going to go add mapping, and let's say mapping name. I want to do it, I want it just to identify the word commission. Transaction type is a payment, account type, vendor, and our account name, let's do it to any of these ones, Dexter. So this is just my sample company as well. And so the tax code only applies when we're doing it to general ledger. So once I click OK here, you'll see it's populated everywhere where you can see the word commission. So if I just expand this column, yeah, so these three lines here, it's picked up commission, commission, commission. So if we only wanted to allocate for these two lines here, we'd have to be more specific with our mapping name. So just to save time, I'm not going to do allocating for all of these, but you can do it manually also line by line. So if I just come here, let's allocate this against a customer. I'm just going to do a couple. I'm going to delete the other blank ones so we can progress to the next stage. Okay, so I'm just going to delete all these blank ones. And we can highlight a few at the same time. You wouldn't probably want to do this in real life terms, but me just to save time, I'm just going to cut all these ones out. Okay, so you do have the option of saving and exiting, and then you can come back to this if you want to finish up later. But I'm going to go ahead, and it brings it through to this next screen here. So here is exactly the same as what we did before. This is all the allocations that we did, but we can also now allocate these payments receipts to outstanding invoices. So I probably have done poor examples here because it looks like none of these customers have any outstanding values, and I can tell that because it stays blank down here as I click on each line. Oh, so this one, okay, so this customer, so I'm going to do TTS03, let's have a look at this one. Which one had one? I don't want to do that customer, let me find a better customer. Okay, so this one, Ashburton Grove. So as I've clicked on that line, there's two outstanding invoices down here. So again, I mean, there's not too much to explain if you're used to the receipting page in accounts receivable or in the cash book, because the functionality is the same. We see our original amount, due amount, the discount taken, etc. So this payment was only for £2.25, and the same way we do it on the other screen, we can just match it here. Based on, so it's limiting us to what's up on this screen here. So everything that we don't allocate here to the bottom half of the screen is basically going to come through as a payment, a deposit or a prepayment when it's a vendor or a customer. So if we now come in here, I'm going to just put the comment as training, and it's okay. So I've allocated this to round 25 for customer TST001. Let me just move this out of the way. I don't know if you can see the thing I'm moving. So once I record this now, it's now going to update our bank and all that stuff. So I'm going to go check that now. For some reason, to me, that doesn't look like it's actually recorded. Let me just go check. So TST, I'm just going to delete that top line. Maybe that's confusing it. Okay, there you go. So that top line there. So you can see how it's technically a beta, like small things like that. For some reason, there was a blank line at the top. So it's just letting us know this. That's fine. And now it's imported it into the system. So it's updated our bank now. So if I go check some of these, and the green means it was successful here. So TST001, let's check a couple of these. We'll see how it shows. So TST001, I'm just noting a couple down because I won't remember. 009. Okay, so I'm going to close here and let's go into receipts. Go to a customer, TST001. So we should be able to tell that it didn't help how that amount was so small. 2 round, it's been knocked off here somewhere. Okay, let's check that vendor. The small amount doesn't make it easy, but let's look at the vendor. TST09. Okay, so all of those we link to the same vendor have come through as, so that I would imagine this is the one where it's cash. So these are all pulled through down as prepayments. So we can allocate these later to other invoices. So what's also handy with business intelligence, you don't necessarily have to import your bank statement here. So you might even start using that instead of using the receipts module. Depends whatever you find easier, really. It'd be quite interesting to see if you guys do just turn to here. So I don't have to use the import function. I can just come and do my receipts here, and I can do multiple vendors at the same time. So you'll work with your bank, obviously, as you usually would. And we can do the same line, different lines, payments. Yeah, see one with the value. And then we can allocate it down here. So you can work on this new screen. What about national account allocation? Good question, Jeff. See, that was my concern. It's the first time I've trained on this, so it's a new question. It will work the same way as it did on the normal receipting screen. So let's just come out of here. So is it worth me setting one up quickly if I set up a national account? So let's do that quickly. I'm going to go Ashburton. Just going to create a couple of linked customers. So let me just make a couple of notes. So it'll work the same as the receipting screen though. So you're only going to see the open item invoices for the main account, depending on how you set it up here. So I mean, if you set up as an individual account on the bank manager, you'll be able to allocate it per branch. But if it's set up as a consolidated one, you'll only see all the open item invoices for the main account. So I don't know if you want me to go through the process, because it'll take a couple of minutes just to set it all up, but it'll work the same way as it did previously. I don't know if you want me to run through the process, Jeff, or is that fine? Okay, perfect. What else do we have on the bank manager that's worth mentioning? Yeah, and I mean, you can also do transactions so you can do a bank transfer, you can do GL accounts. The other thing I was mentioning, so when we import, you can open one. So this is the one I did when I was just playing around before I did the training. So we can import multiple statements, and you can save them and carry on later. So the one I did was in live. I recorded it, so it's no longer available in the open section, in the when I come to import, it doesn't show here anymore because I closed it off. So if I do import and go through the same process, if I press save and exit on this screen, then when I go to import, it's got a second line here. So we can say, okay, I want to continue using this one. So I don't know if there's any other questions with the bank manager. I mean, if you have worked on other bank similar modules from either from Pastel, or we did offer a third-party system called not LaborNet, that's payroll. What was it called? Smart Bank. So if you guys are still using that, it'll be quite interesting to see if checking for duplicate transactions. At what stage, Jeff? Are you saying after you've recorded, or at any point really when you import it at this stage? In case you import the same statement. It's a very good question, because what I've been doing, I've imported the same statement 3 times on this database here, and it hasn't given me any sort of warning. So it's quite an interesting point that you bring up. So it's something I can mention to Stephen, as you know, both Stephens. So I do see the logic with that. So even blocking maybe a duplicate reference number as we do on other invoices, it doesn't do that. So maybe that's an idea where they could add that in. Because I know they're constantly adding to the bank manager module. I mean, last week I was playing around with it. You couldn't save and exit the way I was showing you now. So I think that's a good idea there, Jeff. So if anyone, that applies to anyone, if you pick up little things when you're on the module, because it is still a new feature and quite a big module, you just send it through. So we do have a wish list email address. So if there's any small features you think would enhance the project, the module for all clients, you can send it through to there. And the person who gets that email address is right at the top. It's our MD. So feel free to send that through things. But Jeff, I'll actually query that. I'll make a note of it and see if that's something they can add in, because I can see the logic behind that. I'm just noting that down now. So I don't know if there's any other questions from anyone else in regards to the bank manager, because I'm going to move on to laybys. Just whilst I give you 30 seconds to think of a question, I just want to test the online PO approvals. So I'm not a user on here, so this isn't my login details, but I know they're correct. And if it tells me I can't log in, yeah, so the developers are still working on that, but we'll give it another go after I get past the laybys. Okay, so I'm going to move on. And also worth noting that, I don't know if it's been stated in the other sessions, but all the training sessions are recorded. So if you just if you do want a copy of all the recordings, they're all uploaded to the same folder on Dropbox. So if you just send a request through to training@palladium.coza, and someone will send you that link through. Okay, so laybys. So if I come into receipts, so firstly, so a layby is, so we can allocate receipts against sales orders now with the layby functionality. So it's a setting that you have to activate. So it's basically when you do a sales order, but the customer only pays in installments, and they only take ownership of the stock item once they've paid in full. So I believe, I'm pretty certain this development was done for one of the guys in attendance today. So if that person wants to elaborate on any ideas of why they needed it, so it'd probably add value, but it's completely up to them. If they're even here, but I'm sure they are. So control panel, to activate this setting, so I'm going to come and check receivables. Where did I see it? So it's over here. So allow receipt processing to sales orders and credit requests. So if it's turned off, If I come to a customer that I know has a sales order against them, it's blank. It's not showing anything down here. However, if I come back to the control panel and activate that setting, and just with whilst I'm on the company options, even if some of you have been on Palladium for quite a while, it's worth taking just 10 minutes aside and going through all the features in here, because even clients who have been on Palladium for a few years don't realize what features are actually available. There's some little gems in here, but anyway, so I'm going to tick this option now. Let's go back to receipts. And you see a sales order is now showing. So I knew there was a sales order outstanding for this customer. So we can actually allocate a payment to receipt against that sales order. So usually I wouldn't allocate this full amount in one go. I'd allocate 50 Rand today, and they'll pay on whatever terms you have agreed with them. Also, what's new on this screen, let's go back to the same customer. Hi Jeff, let's have a look at your question again. We asked for this so that we could, thanks, so glad you're giving yourself away there. So Jeff is one of our clients that, is the client that we did this development for. So we asked for this so that we could allocate the receipt in full, even though we have not passed all the credit notes. So we wanted to create a credit request to indicate there is a pending credit. And I believe you import your credit notes. I've been informed, or have I been misinformed? Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so also on this screen, where I was coming to, you'll see once we activate that setting in the control panel, we can process a credit request from this screen. So we can come in here, and it takes us to the credit request feature. It's probably, and we can do the item as we usually do, 122, we can record it. And then we can also allocate against this credit request. So if I record that, I don't want to leave this page, but you can allocate against the credit request. And then what's nice is if we come back into here, so this is just telling me it's going to clear my allocation because I haven't recorded the document yet. But the purpose for, let's go back to my credit request. So you see on the credit request feature, there's also another thing here, applied to credit notes. I believe the reason that was done for the clients, so like I was just saying, they import their credit notes. So usually with the credit request on Palladium, you then go to the credit notes and one of your supervisors will convert the credit request to a credit note. But in this case, where the client's importing the credit notes, that'll end up in a duplication of credit notes. So rather, you'd open your credit request and you can actually apply it to the credit note that's been imported. So I don't have any imported credit notes, so let me create a credit note quickly. And we'll come back to this customer. Okay, I just got someone saying they can't hear anything. I'm just going to have to advise them that there is a video. Just if you bear with me. Just letting another session will be recorded. Okay, thanks for waiting, guys. So I'm just going to do a credit note. Okay, and do it against the same customer. And record. And so now when I go back into receipts, we select the same customer, process credit request, and we'll go back to the one I did. I'm just going to make it so it's an equal match. Record, and then we can apply it to that credit note. So then it comes up with this message. So it just lets you know if you have allocated on the receipt screen, if you have allocated against that credit request, it's just letting you know that it's going to cancel the credit request and reapply any applied credit request receipts to the credit note, if that makes sense. So it's just talking about on the receipting screen. It's going to change the allocation from the credit request to the credit note that we're applying it to. Do you wish to continue? Yes, we do. Do you have some little notes? So what else do we have here? So we can process our credit notes, apply to credits, and also with some of the receivable reports. So we can run our customer statement. So you'll see there's a couple of changes here as well. So up here we can do open item like we always did, but you can see these two settings have appeared down here. So if we click this one, the difference is it will show the outstanding sales orders on the customer statement, but it won't add it to the document total. So the value won't change. The value will still be based on open item invoices. If we do want it to take it into account, we'll click this second option as well. So I'm just going to run it for the customer I know has a sales order, and then we can see it down here. And the same applies for the age analysis. Display open sales orders, credit requests. Yeah, so it's on a few of here, so it has been carried across the board. One thing I haven't had a look at, actually, I probably should have looked at before I came on, but I don't think you can allocate to a sales order on the Bank Manager module. It's probably just something I'll have to just double check. Let me try it quickly. TST008, so look. It doesn't look like it's showing it, so I'll just have to double check that one. Or even if it should, maybe there's a reason it's not. Is there any questions on the laybys? I know yourself, Jeff, are probably heavily involved in the design of this feature, so I don't know if there's something I might be glaringly missing from your perspective. Let me just try the online PO approvals because I do like this feature. Okay, great. I suppose you're liaising with the right people about that. Do you need me to follow up on anything for you, Jeff? We asked that allocations are saved when going to a new credit request. We asked that allocations are saved when going to a new credit request and back to the receipt. So check it. We asked that allocations are saved when going to a new credit. Not quite with you, Jeff. So are you saying if I do a credit request like I've done here, and we've allocated against it, are saved going to a new? Are you saying are you saying you don't want to get this message? Is that what you mean? So I should be able to go into the process credit request screen, and without is that? Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely, if you wish.
Hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm good, Jeff. Yeah, much easier.
Adam, no, what we were saying is, yeah, so we have we do a receipt for 3,000 lines. Yeah. So you might get to line 1,000 and realize, okay, you don't have this credit note. You need to process a credit request. Yeah. So you click the process credit request button, and you go to there. Yeah. Yeah, you get this message. But so what we wanted to save your allocations at that point. You do your credit request. And you come back again so that you can just continue. And you still, so what happens now clears.
Yeah, so you still have your 999 lines there. Yeah.
Yes.
Allocate. Yeah. So I'll have to check that because it doesn't look to be the case, does it?
Okay. All right, no problem. That's probably in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate the input, Jeff.
No problem.
Thanks. Any other questions? Does anyone have any questions on all this functionality here, or we just try the online approvals again? I'm sure it won't go through. Okay, so that the online peer approvals isn't up. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's probably going to be again next Friday because I think every day of the week, Monday to Thursday, we have training booked. So we'll probably just slot it in next Friday. So we'll send an email to everyone who's attending today. So it'll probably just take us 20 minutes to go through it. So for those who aren't familiar with, don't use the purchase order approvals, it's just basically if you want to put some workflow in place. So only purchase orders can only be approved by certain users, so your senior users. So it means that most of your staff members would have to do a purchase requisition first, and then they get to send a notification to an approver, and then the approver can decide yes or no if it's going to be converted into a purchase order. So, I mean, this is not always ideal because the purchase order approvers are usually people quite senior in the company, maybe aren't in the office all the time, maybe away on business trips quite often. So for people who are back in the office, they need these orders processed, approved, but they can't do it because the person's not available or don't have their laptop available. So the online purchase order approvals is basically a browser, as you can see where I'm trying to access it from. It's browser based. So you'll be able to activate it from your mobile, from a tablet or whatever you need, and you can process those, you can approve those purchase orders, as long as you have an internet connection, obviously. So it's going to be a very useful feature, and we are using it internally here. I probably should have liaised with the developers just to make sure they didn't work on it today, but it happens. So we'll just reschedule that, and we'll send an email to everyone about it. And also, so I know we have our own business intelligence in Palladium. Like if you go to dashboard, you get some graphs, and we have business intelligence here. We also offer Microsoft Power BI, which we can integrate with. But we've also got our own Power BI, which also sits in here. So the Palladium Online PO approval system also comes with some BI reports, and it's all very aesthetically pleasing and all that. So we'll definitely get to show you this next week as well. So is there any other questions on anything else? Any questions? So there's a couple of things so with Jeff's questions there, if there's a message to let you know maybe you're duplicating something, maybe just a warning option like we have on sales invoices if you have a duplicate invoice reference number. So I'll just query that stuff and I'll send an email to everyone who attended the session today. And also sales order processing where you can allocate a credit request without losing all your allocations. So I'll find those two things out. And you'll get an email for the PO online approval for next week. Okay, so I don't think there's any questions. So I'm going to end this session here. So if you do want a recording, just please email training@palladium.coza and we'll send you the link. And all sessions have been recorded. So if you haven't managed to attend or you'd like a video on one of the sessions that were done earlier on, you can also ask for those still. Okay. Thanks for attending, everyone, and thanks for the questions, Jeff. Appreciate it. Hi, Cloud. Yeah, if you could just email training@Palladium, because that's where that person's got all the videos there. They know which link to give you. So you could just email training@Palladium. So that email address I just put into the chat. Thanks, everyone.